Hello, everyone. Jan, are you here now? Morning, Yotika. How are you? We can't hear you, but I'm sure you're fine.
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning, Yotika.
Good afternoon, maybe.
Almost evening for us.
Almost evening. I see the sun behind you.
Good day. Hello.
Hello, Carmen. How are you? Morning. Did you listen to any of the discussions from Bangkok or watch any of the Zooms?
I listened to the last one. I listened to, I think, 2 or 3, but not, I think only with one with me in it, and the rest was when I was not there, when I left already.
Okay. Okay, I think Ajahn is here now. Are you here, Ajahn? We can't hear you, Ajahn. Perhaps Ajahn has a technical problem, so perhaps we should start anyway. Sita, have you got anything you would like to bring up or discuss? We can't hear you, Sita.
Yeah, I was the difference between passa and sampassa. Are they the same?
Well, passa is the Cetasika, and as you know, that arises with every citta. And when sampassa is used, I'm not sure if it just means with passa. I just asked Nina. Nina, Sito is just asking about the meaning of sampassa, how sampassa is different from passa.
Yeah,
we can't hear you, Nina.
Some is together. So that is
with passa. Yeah.
This passa, some passa, this passa.
Okay, thank you, Nina.
So it's both referring to passa. So sometimes it might be referring to another Cetasika or the Citta sampassa together with passa.
Yes. I have something, Sarah, to bring up.
Nina.
Yeah. Well, some weeks ago, Ajahn explained about sensor and mindor and nimitta through sensor, through mindor, and I could not follow it very well. I found this a most difficult subject, and it would be very helpful if Ajahn could explain this again, because I'm wondering whether is nimitta experienced also through sense door and through mind door.
I'm not sure if Ajahn is having some technical problems because
Yeah.
the message said she's connected, but we haven't heard from her yet. Are you there, Ajahn?
Yes,
Yes. Did you hear Nina's question to you?
not quite.
Sawadika, Ajahn.
I can repeat it.
Yes,
Yeah.
please repeat, Nina.
Yeah. Well, Ajahn explained about nimitta through sense door and nimitta through mind door. And I felt a bit lost. I found it a difficult subject. I could not really follow it when it is about the different doorways, since I don't really, I know in theory what mind door is, but not really understand the reality of mind door.
What appears now is not just one unit or one reality. For example, seeing right now, even it arises to see just a moment, but now there is seeing almost all the time when there's no hearing and thinking. There's seeing for sure. So the arising and falling away of one citta, the seeing itself, cannot be realized at all. So whatever appears as it sees is many moments of seeing, and many moments condition the sign or the mark of that reality as seeing. Only that which arises before or after cannot appear at all. Only seeing now with many moments before and later. It's seen as seeing only. So it's the sign of seeing, the mark of seeing, that seeing is now sees, but so many moments, not just only one. That's why whatever appears by way of nimitta only. No matter what the way, no matter what appears as the object, the nimitta of that reality appears.
Yes, yes. Through sensor and mind door, Ajahn, I did not understand about the doorways.
Any arising and falling away realities appear as nimitta. Only nimitta of a reality or nimitta of shape and form as be taken for something.
And that is through mind door.
No, anything, no matter now that is sensed though, the seeing process. But what is seen is not that Pancharavara Vachana or Sampatichana or anything. Only seeing now appears as the mark and the sign of seeing. Not just one single seeing can be seen or can be known as object. Whatever arises falls away in split seconds. So what appears can be just the nimitta of a reality, and more processes is the mitta of something as a sign or the mark taken for this or that, as something. Like Kunina now, see what is seen, not just one dot of that which is seen, and seeing many dots, many moments of seeing. So what appears is just a sign of seeing, the nimitta of seeing. And that which is seen is only nimitta of that which is seen, not through mind door yet. But even when it arises or the mind door experiences it as nimitta, because only one single reality cannot be known at all. So Buddha taught, whatever arises and falls away can be known by way of only nimitta of that reality, not just one single moment or single reality.
And Nina, perhaps you could elaborate for Ajahn what you mean by mind door, because your problem with understanding mind door, because anything that's not an experience through the sense door has to be mind door, right?
Yes.
So can you elaborate a bit on why you say you have a problem with mind door?
Yes, because Ajahn said many things about the different doorways, but I know so little and I really don't understand. I know in theory only, and I have not really penetrated the nature of mind door.
But that, have we penetrated the nature of sense door?
Difficult. All is very difficult when it is about doorways.
But at a conceptual level, is it difficult to appreciate that any experiencing that is not through a sense door has to be mind door activity?
No,
Such as
in theory, yes. It
Right.
can be known, yeah.
And when there's understanding and awareness of a reality, for example, seeing now, the nature of seeing, we know it's always the nimitta of seeing that appears because so many moments of seeing and rise and fall away. But at those moments of understanding the characteristic of seeing, no thought about sense door or mind door. It's just the nature of that reality, the seeing which arises in the sense door and experiences what is visible, that is the object. So I think that when there is confusion about sense door and mind door, it's just the thinking now, the thinking and the doubt and the confusion, because at moments of understanding, no doubt, no confusion, is just the reality itself that is experienced. And it has to be nimitta. So there have to be the realities that arise and fall away in the sense door and in the mind door, but it's always just the nimitta of the reality that appears and is known.
Yes.
And that is known through the mind door. For example, the seeing can't be known through the eye door. It can only be known by nimitta in the mind door. But at the moment of understanding, no thought about what doorway it is. It's just the nature of that reality which appears.
Yeah, that's clear, yes.
I think the point you mentioned at the start when you said, Ajahn had mentioned nimitta through any doorway. I think what she was probably referring to is the realities can arise in any doorway, but it's always the nimitta of the reality that appears no matter what doorway the reality has arisen in.
Yes, I see.
For example, hardness, it's experienced in the sense door, but there cannot be awareness of one hardness. So it's always countless moments of hardness. The nimitta of hardness appears. So no matter whether the reality has arisen in a sense door or mind door, it is the nimitta of the reality that appears. So I think that was probably the point she was making. Anything more on that, Nina?
A nimitta of reality, that is clear. But we also discussed a nimitta of a concept, and that is a difficult subject.
So like now when we look around and there's the sign of the table and the chair and the computer and anything, whatever is here, but actually these are just ideas, just signs of ideas. So the understanding has to get closer and closer to understand the sign of the reality. But it is because of the realities that have arisen and fallen away that there are the ideas about the shapes and the forms and the tables and the computers and the people all around.
Yeah.
Just on this subject then, Nina, I don't know if it helps, but when we are looking at the computer screen and we understand this is concept that is the object of thinking at that time, and we see the different faces of people that we know, the image appears to be continuous. That is to say, the image of the computer and the faces of the different people.
Right,
And
yeah.
so there must be what we could call the nimitta effect to give the appearance of continuity of, yes, because as we understand it, the concepts that are the object of seeing are only there for the moment of seeing consciousness each time. So where the image appears to be continuous, then we can say it must be like an emitter of the image or concept.
Yes, yes.
So actually, it's always nimitta. Whatever is experience, it's always nimitta of something, of a reality or the idea or the impression or the whatever it is.
But Sarah, if it you say the nimitta of hardness, but is the nimitta of hardness is that an experience? An experience.
So
It is
what
not a
is
seeing. It's not a hearing, smelling, tasting.
so what is touched now?
But it's touch.
What is touched now? Hardness or heat or coolness at this moment. So hardness is a reality that is touched. Hardness, or it may be softness. So different degrees of hardness, from very hard to very soft. But it's just that reality, the hatui dhatu, that reality which is touched, different from the warmth or coolness, which is another reality that is touched, or the motion. But there are countless moments of touching hardness now. So when there is awareness of hardness or understanding of hardness, it's not just one hardness that is known. It is the nimitta of hardness, because there have been many, many experiences, many, many moments of touching of hardness. But that characteristic can be known right now by understanding, but it's the nimitta of the hardness, not just one hardness, but many hardnesses that have fallen away. But that characteristic is known. But at the moment of understanding, there's no thought about how many hardnesses or whether it's sensed or mind or it's just the characteristic that appears, and it's the present object, because it is that reality that is appearing to understanding by way of nimitta.
And is every nimitta going through two doorways, to the sense doorway and through the mind doorway? Yeah.
Whatever arises and falls away, no matter through the sense door or mind door,
It goes through it, through
has
both.
to be known. If it's known by nimitta. So, for example, now the seeing consciousness, there can never be understanding at the moment of seeing, but the characteristic of seeing can be known through the mind door. But it is the nimitta of seeing. The seeing itself has fallen away. Many moments of seeing have fallen away. And it's actually the same with any reality.
Yeah.
Even the visible object is not just one visible object that is understood, but there are many visible objects that have been experienced, and its characteristic is known by the nimitta immediately after it's fallen away many times. So the nimitta appears through the mind door because the visible object itself has fallen away. The sound has fallen away, the hardness has fallen away, the seeing has fallen away, the attachment, the anger, whatever reality it is, it's always the nimitta of that reality, which is the object of understanding now. And I don't think we need to be too concerned, because otherwise it just conditions lots of doubt at a moment of understanding of hardness. It's just that characteristic which appears. But in fact, it has to be nimitta.
Yeah.
And it's now, hardness now that is touched. This is life at this moment. And it seems that it's hard for many, many moments, but actually it's just such a brief moment of when hardness is experienced and then gone. But there are many different experiences of thinking in between, many different hardnesses that are experienced and fallen away immediately.
I cannot formulate it, but is the thinking then, the thinking is not an, is the thinking also a nimitta? Or no?
The thinking, the citta, which thinks about hardness now, for example, arises and falls away countless times. But when there is understanding of thinking, for example, the citta that is experiencing, thinking about the object, it is the nimitta of thinking which appears, which is known. But it's the nimitta of that characteristic of thinking, the citta, which experiences its object, different from the seeing which sees or the hearing which hears. It's the citta which thinks at this moment, in between the sense door processes. It seems that the seeing lasts, but it's just a moment. The touching is just a moment, but there are countless moments of thinking, countless mind door processes in between, with many, many moments of thinking.
But then is the question of what is there reality now that is then about the same thing? That's also the answer then. Whatever the reality is also nimitta.
Yes, whatever reality appears or whatever reality is known, it's always nimitta. Yes, but it's nimitta of hardness or nimitta of thinking or nimitta of seeing. So it's nimitta of different characteristics. So the nimitta of seeing is different from the nimitta of hardness. So it's actually the characteristic of seeing or hardness that appears.
Big thing.
It's a deep topic.
Yeah, I think. It's okay, fine so far.
And I know it's very late for you. Anything you would like to bring up before you fall asleep or anything? We can't hear you, Anne. We're not hearing you, Anne.
Oh, okay. Actually, it's almost 2:00 in the afternoon. I'm sitting in Bangkok. No, I can't hear you.
Oh, we were just laughing, actually. Oh, good for you. Well done. So,
Yeah.
Civilized time.
Very civilized. I shouldn't have any trouble staying awake, although I might jet lag.
anything that you or anyone else would like to bring up while Ajahn is still here?
Not me right now.
Maeve, have you got anything you would like to bring up today?
Yes, Sarah, it's well, it's a thought around that which experiences. And I woke up this morning and I was aware of waking up. And then the first thought was, I'm alive. And I reflected on what could have conditioned that thought, because it wasn't thinking about anything that I immediately saw or felt, or it was just a sense of experiencing, but I can't really, it's quite difficult to formulate, but it prompted me to think about the nature of experiencing, and whether I know Ajahn says how difficult it is, or no, not difficult, but how elusive the idea of that which experiences is to understand. And I suppose that what I was wondering was whether there's like to have the idea of being alive seems to be based on a collective impression, not just one particular thing, but maybe a series of experiences that confirm that experiencing is actually happening. Now, I'm not quite sure how to phrase that question. Maybe you can help me a little. But is it possible for us to have a sort of a generalized sense, or is it just at the level of thinking, that it's not possible except to experience realities one at a time? But is it possible that can contribute to an overall sense of an idea about reality, an idea about experiencing?
Just briefly make a comment before Sarah gives more information.
I don't mind who helps.
I think if one's had that idea before, then it can be conditioned to occur again. So I think memory plays a part here, for whatever reason or by whatever means. I mean, there is the idea that one is alive, and I think the idea just pops into one's head, as it were, because it has occurred before, and it doesn't have to have a basis of a particular kind in terms of present moment realities, for example.
That doesn't quite explain what prompts it, what prompts that idea of thinking I'm alive, because it's almost something that is taken for granted, or not reflected on, not not considered. I suppose I'm trying to explore the idea by way of the nature of that which experiences.
Are you wondering whether the thought I'm alive is a kind of not necessarily understanding, but a perception of something?
Yes, a perception of consciousness.
Only the individual could know whether that thought is a frivolous one or a deep, deeply considered one.
Actually, Maeve, I was hoping that it was what you just said. And I thought that maybe because you've been hearing about Chitta a lot, and that could have conditioned that moment. But like John said, only Panya can know, and it's your Panya, not anyone else's.
It could just be a moment of pure attachment to sensed or experiencing at that moment.
Yes, or
For example.
There are many possibilities because this is a discussion at a theoretical level, you know, because it's retrospective, etc., etc. But well, maybe the question is, how do we know that we are alive?
I think what you're saying is that this particular line of thought that I am alive is not something that happens in a day. I mean, for you, probably that was the first time. But I think what John just said about the senses, I think it's implied in every experience, not every, but many times in a day. It's seeing, there's the idea of I'm seeing, and somewhere there's the conclusion that I am here to see.
And in a sense, Maeve, one could, I mean, usually it's with attachment, right? It's a joyful thing rather than a sad thing, right? This realization or thought or whatever.
It's not unpleasant.
But didn't the Buddha say that existence is dukkha? Every moment of existence is dukkha by nature. So I'm wondering if there's any aspect of understanding or whether it's just a conventional appreciation, as it were, of being alive, because conventionally we think it's good to be alive and one doesn't want to be dead. And in fact, one is never dead, but there's always consciousness.
Yes. I think you're right. There is that sort of conventional notion about, you know, I don't know, sometimes you hear people advising others to cheer themselves up by reminding themselves that they're not dead. But I think it was more in the territory of that being aware of being alive also made me reflect on how that which experiences is a condition in itself, a necessary condition for, I suppose, yes, being alive.
Yes, I think that's right, because experiencing is what distinguishes the sentient being from non-sentient matter. So experiencing is key to being alive. There is that connection.
Perhaps we can invite Ajahn to add some words as she's leaving early today.
Thank you.
Ajahn,
Thank
do you
you.
have any comments you'd like to add to Maeve's comments?
Is it now Maeve saying?
I'm sorry, John. Could you say that again?
Is there now Maeve saying?
There's seeing, yes, and there's probably thinking that it's Maeve seeing.
But the idea just is there Maeve seeing now?
Yes.
Okay. What about Maeve saw last previous moment?
What about what Ajahn? I'm sorry, I'm just missing.
You said, what about Maeve saw at a previous moment? Is there the idea of that?
There's yes, there's the assumption, I think. I mean, if Maeve's seeing now, then Maeve saw before. I think, yes, there is that.
Now again, it's Maeve seeing, not other person. The Maeve or someone else, not Maeve anymore.
Well, they're seeing.
Yes.
Seeing. And then there is the additional thinking that seeing belongs to Maeve, but in reality, there's just seeing, that which sees.
Without thinking, there cannot be any idea at all. So now, just be truthful to the truth or the idea. Who sees now?
Maeve sees now. If
Last moment, who saw?
Well, it's the same. I mean,
Moment, who is seeing?
well, there's that idea of someone, and that someone is Maeve, who is seeing.
Is alive?
Yes, I believe so.
Now, future is still Maeve. And that's now Maeve think.
Well, Maeve thinks and sees, which is an indication of her being alive.
So Maeve is alive, right?
Yes.
But in truth, what is taken from Maeve gone each moment, as soon as it has a reason, it falls away instantly. So it's only the idea, even being alive or dead. Just the idea. But there must be the reality, which is conditioned to be seeing or hearing. And when there is no one, what is there? See is taken for I, because it sees. And it is not known as it. So I see. No matter sleeping, talking, thinking, saying, anytime. Because it's still made from birth up to now and to death. But after that, no more this being as before at all. Even right now, it's no one. But there's not enough understanding of that which is different from moment to moment, not to be that moment again in life. In just one moment in samsara, And that is the absolute truth. But the idea as being born and die is one person of lifetime. And then new one arise again, different one again, not as myth as before. That's why now myth is alive. Not die yet. But each moment cannot be taken for someone or something because it's all gone permanently, never to arise again. Absolutely, ultimately.
So thinking about being alive is just the self thinking about the self. Maeve thinking about Maeve.
Not die yet, because thinking about Maeve is thinking about Maeve.
And probably Jonathan asked before about was there attachment to that idea, that thinking, or was it thinking with attachment? And yes, because I felt glad to be alive.
But
so
it's not
attachment.
In the deep sense, in the absolute sense, it is a reality which is attached to that object at that moment of seeing, of hearing, as all the time, as long as death hasn't come yet. Last life was an if. And
yes, I think. Sorry, Ajahn.
Death, see, only in this life, as myth in this life only. But seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, all gone, never to arise again, in truth. So no matter in what life, it's just like now, see? No understanding of that which appears as it's gone. So what is there? It's something permanent. And when it's the reality which experiences the object, it's I. And when it's not the object which can experience, but the idea of its mind or my body and something is still there. As long as there is the reality which is conditioned to experience an object from moment to moment all the time. No understanding of the truth that actually there's no Maeve, no Sujin, no Jonathan, no Sarah at all. Different conditioned realities arising to see, to think, to like, or dislike. That's all. Understand whether it's so true and this firm confidence of the truth. So it has to be still Maeve as long as now Maeve is seeing, or a moment ago Maeve saw, and Maeve will see later. No one. So is now Maeve alive? See?
Well, happily so, Ajahn, because it's an opportunity to actually develop a very, very tiny amount of understanding.
That's why what is there can be object of right understanding of its nature as it is, no matter what. Because the truth is that each reality has its characteristic, its nature, its function, and then gone, but there can be understanding of whatever appears by nimitta as just a reality which sees, a reality which hears different ones. And the understanding of the truth, when it's so confident, it conditions moment of understanding whatever is there at different levels by conditions.
And it always seems helpful to bring it back to that regardless of what the experience might be, to, at the level of thinking, recall that it's by conditions. Well, I find that perhaps the most helpful in terms of just gradually developing the thinking which I suppose challenges that idea of Maeve thinking, Maeve having this experience, all of that story, but the idea that everything is by conditions, and not just at a, I mean, that's generalizing, but very specifically. So even that the thought about I am alive is by conditions. And thank you for reminding me about that.
Understand the truth, that's all, because understanding develops firmer and firmer little by little. So it's enrooted from moment to moment to just understand what is there by conditions unexpectedly as it is. At that level of understanding, even level of satipatthana, beginning to understand the characteristic of a reality right now. Suddenly, instantly, anatta. And even this understanding with joy or whatever, or it's there, condition the next moment unexpectedly. What is there, what level, and by what aspect. And the truth is there to be known anytime, any moment, when there's understanding, considering wisely of the truth of it. It is firmer by conditions, not just by trying to be firm confidence, but it's there by condition. So even though Maeve, or is still Maeve alive, is understanding the truth of the reality of no matter what appears without understanding the truth of it. It's impossible not to have some idea about it. But it's just thinking. So the world goes on through by having the seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking all about those moments as something, different moment, different things all the time. But in truth, no matter it's what subject, medical or science or whatever, without these 6 doorways, there cannot be anything at all. No matter how it develops to the degree that it's so very marvel or whatever is there, all are by 6 doorways of experiencing an object at a time, one by one.
And Maeve, another way of considering this might be that if their thinking is about being alive rather than dead, then it must be a thinking about this identity. Because as we learn from the Buddha's teaching, there will be life continuously. It can't be stopped. It only comes to an end with final enlightenment. And so it's not a fact in that sense. It's not a question of being lucky to be alive. It's a question of having to live, having to put up with life because of its unsatisfactory nature. That's the reality of things as taught by the Buddha. Whereas when we think good to be alive, lucky to be alive, grateful to be alive, appreciate life, then we are thinking about this existence as this particular individual, rather than the inevitability of continuation of consciousness on and on and on, forevermore, unless and until final enlightenment is attained.
Yes, that's true. But at the same time, this human life is potentially a condition for hearing the teachings and developing understanding. So I think that is a little, well, it's different to, I'm not quite sure how, well, I suppose in the absolute sense, even that process is part of the cycle of samsara, and therefore.
Yes, but there can be appreciation of the opportunity to hear the teaching, definitely. And that can be kusala. But that's a little different from thinking, or the appreciation, if you like, of being alive.
Yes.
Because there can also be human life without any opportunity to hear the Dhamma.
I think one other point is that the thinking first thing when waking up, I'm alive, or whatever it was, it's all gone anyway. So we may try to think about or work out what was behind the thinking at that time, but it's all gone. It can't be known. But the thinking now about it is the reality. So now there's, by conditions, because of memory, there's thinking about what occurred first thing in the morning, just dwelling. So it's just dwelling on the story of what occurred. It's not the understanding of the seeing now, the hearing now, the thinking now. So this is why we come back to what about now? What about the seeing? What about the thinking? What about the clinging now? Because there can be clinging to the story of that experience again and again, but it's the present clinging that is real, the present seeing that's real. What happened this morning is totally gone and irrelevant, but the understanding has to be at this moment of what appears now.
Thank you. Ajahn, Jonathan's there.
Asita, have you got anything you would like to bring up before Ajahn leaves? Or anyone else?
Sarah, I have
Yes,
one question about this Jivi Indriya. There, is it what do you call? with every chitta and every cetasika, jiva indriya and companies. Can we say that this jiva indriya is supporting, has the function of supporting the chitta and cetasikas? I'm not very sure.
Yes,
Thank you.
there are two kinds of Jivitindriya. There's Jivitindriya, the Cetasika, and Jivitindriya, the Rupa. You're talking about Jivitindriya, the Cetasika, that arises with every chitta, and it maintains the life of the chitta and cetasikas that it arises with. It conditions the chitta and cetasikas, and they condition it. In the case of the plants or table or computer, there is no Jivitindriya Cetasika, but in the case of living beings, Jivitindriya has to arise with every chitta to support and maintain the life faculty, the living nature of the chitta and the cetasikas. They couldn't arise and fall away without Jivitindriya performing its task. Different from Jivitindriya, the Rupa. When it's the Rupa, it just arises in the groups of Rupas conditioned by karma. So again, because in the case of plants and trees, there are no Rupas conditioned by karma, so no Jivitindriya Rupa. But in the groups of Rupas, like eye sense or ear sense, that are conditioned by karma, Jivitindriya maintains the life of those Rupas conditioned by karma. So Jivitindriya Cetasika and Jivitindriya Rupa.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
So even at moments of seeing or hearing, whenever any chitta arises, the Jivitindriya Cetasika has to arise together with the chitta and the accompanying Cetasikas to maintain the life at those moments.
And they fall together also at the same time,
All at
yes?
the same time, arise together, condition each other, experience the same object, same as pasa, arise together, experience the object, all fall away together.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Performing their different functions.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anything you would like to add before you leave, Ajahn? Jung, I saw you wandering in and out of your picture. Anything you would like to bring up today? Jung from Vietnam, anything you would like to bring up? Maybe he's not listening now. Yotika, were you trying to speak? Go ahead.
No, I do not have a question at the moment. You try to follow.
I think it's quite common. I'm not particularly pointing to Maeve's question, but I often hear people bringing up questions with Ajahn, like I had this experience last year, or when I was a child, or this morning, or what is the significance of this experience, or especially those who have followed meditation practices have the impression they've had particular or special experiences. And I've always found it very helpful when Ajahn has basically said, it doesn't matter because it's all gone, it's unimportant. But usually we cling to different experiences we've had this morning, yesterday as a child, but actually they've all gone. of no importance anymore. So the understanding always comes back to this moment.
To me, it was very, very surprising. Also, what came out of the discussion with me. I'm very grateful for it. Because this thing, I am alive, and then to see that it is again that the I is talking, that it is also the I again. Yeah. So interesting. Amazing.
I am alive in the morning, or I am seeing, I am
I'm happy
hearing.
with it. That's how we talk, how I talk too.
And actually, I take your point, Sarah, but I think sometimes it can be and I suppose that was my intention in raising it, a springboard to talking about the present moment. And I think I appreciate that Ajahn steered the conversation, which I had been talking about the past, into the present, about, am I alive now at this moment? Am I thinking about this self that is alive? So I think it depends on how the situation that the people maybe want to discuss can be steered into a certain kind of reflection about what is really going on, not so much investigating that past experience, but using it as a springboard into the present moment.
But if there is awareness right away, and then there is not the I am alive, I am happy, I am alive, I am alive. Then you know, okay, then you know that immediately, I think.
Well, by conditions and because of memory, they're still thinking about I all the time. I'm alive, I'm seeing, I'm having this experience. But there can be the reminders and the understanding that it is just thinking usually with the idea of I, thinking with attachment, thinking with wrong understanding at those moments. So it can be understood, but the understanding can only be now. So it can only be now when there is that thinking in that way.
Yeah, well, like we can say conventionally that we are all alive. Like we're not dead from this person conventionally, but we all just know that it's just Dharma and there's no really. But then we saying like me, Harji, I'm alive. Harji is not dead yet. I mean, this in this life, what conventionally as Harji. Yeah, but then after Chuta Chita, the last consciousness of this life, then become a new person, good conventionally, but all are Dharma continuously.
I think that what Ajahn was pointing to is the deep-rooted clinging to the sense of I that is there, I that is seeing now, I that is hearing, even if we don't put it into any words, it's so deep-rooted, it arises instantly after seeing and hearing. So quickly there's the idea of my experience, I'm thinking, I'm seeing. So it's now, it's daily life.
So much so that even when we are telling ourselves that it's just conventional, maybe that self is already there.
Yeah.
And the underlying clinging to life that we about, that thread that runs through all experience while we're alive, of clinging to that.
clinging to seeing, clinging to hearing, just clinging to experiencing, clinging to being.
And I
And we
think
know
it's
it
good
can
to
be very
remember.
subtle.
Yeah, and I think, Maeve, I think it's good to remember, as John pointed out, about the possibility of attachment at the time, that if it's understanding, then it's with detachment. So if it's attachment, then it can't be understanding.
Alberto, anything you would like to bring up today or mention?
Not really, sorry.
Can I ask something?
Go ahead, Carmen.
It's not really, I don't know, because in the psychology, that when people have traumatic experiences, it is sort of also in the body. And what did the Buddha said about that? Yeah, probably nothing, but how can we explain that according to the words of the Buddha? Because they say that the body also has a memory. That's what I meant.
So actually, there's no understanding of what is nama and what is rupa. For example, the rupas that we refer to as the body, the hardness, the softness, the heat, the cold. Can there be any memory in the hardness or the heat or the softness? Or is it just the memory with thinking about that hardness or softness? Like you mentioned, they also talk about the stress in the body and yes, the memory in the body. But the rupas cannot experience anything at all. They are just those realities which can only be experienced. So the memory can only be the Cetasika that arises with the citta and thinks and remembers and marks what has been experienced. So the hardness that is experienced now is marked, it's remembered, and there's thinking about it. Oh, touching the table is condition for painful bodily feeling that if the hardness is touched in a particular way, but the painful feeling is a cetasika, it's not the rupa, it's not the table, it's not the body, because the rupas can only be experienced. So I think that without understanding the difference between those realities that experience an object and those realities that are experienced, everything will be mixed up and there will be the idea of a body, of someone, or different things and places. Because, for example, what is a body? What is a body now? Is there a reality of a body?
And is it because in the psychology we make more the how do you say that? We have the brain and the body, and here we have the nama and rupa, and here and that's where the mixed up is happening, I guess, because nama is not the same as the brain, and so that's okay. Thank you.
What is the brain in reality? Is there a brain?
Yes, in psychology, yes, but but in absolute truth, it's only Namarupa.
If there is no thinking about a brain, is there a brain? What is seen in the laboratory? What is seen is the visible object. What is touched is the hardness. So is there any brain in reality? Or are there just those particular rupas that we call the brain? And the same with the body. Can a body be touched? Can a body be seen? Can a body be heard? Or can it just be thought about? Or a finger, can a finger be seen? Or can just the hardness be touched? And the memory that marks that experience conditions of thinking about the finger, the body, the brain. So in psychology and science, we live in the world of concepts, ideas, but the Buddha taught about the understanding of the actual reality now. If there is no thinking about a brain now, is there a brain?
Yes, thank you. But it's sometimes challenging when for your job you do the one thing and talk in that language, and it's also in a way, I would say truth, but not to absolute. I understand that. So yeah, sometimes it's.
And we can know conventionally what people are referring to, like in my yoga class, they may talk about the body memory or something. I know what they're talking about. So we can follow the conventional language. We know what people are referring to by brain or body, but if we're interested to really understand the truth, then we have to be very precise, because in truth, there is no body or no brain or no body memory at all.
And according to the Buddha, trauma is just a memory.
The trauma is actually the ignorance, the clinging, the wrong understanding, the different defilements.
It is a memory with ignorance.
Exactly, like someone may have a trauma because of this and that happened in their childhood, but it's all gone. Now the problem is the thinking, the accumulated clinging and
to the story.
Ignorance right now, thinking about the story, thinking about the experiences, no matter good or bad, they've all gone. So what about understanding of the thinking now, the clinging now? And it seems so ridiculous when it's something so unpleasant. Why keep clinging? Because that is the nature of clinging. It can cling to anything, just keeps thinking and thinking, stuck on the same story, thinking about it again and again, accumulating more and more dosa, more and more ignorance. So this is the trauma.
But how would you, because it's also patterns, because in traumas, it's not always that we think about the trauma again and again, but it's also like it manifested in the whole actions, everything we do, but that is coming from conditioning. One is conditioning the other, right?
So whatever arises is always by conditions, and not just this lifetime, but countless lifetimes. Like the thinking now, the smiling now, the frowning now, each moment, each reality is conditioned. Each rupa is conditioned. Each the intention to move the hand this way or this way is conditioned.
Yeah.
But the only way out is the understanding now of what appears. And I think it's a great lifting of a burden to appreciate it is the trauma, the difficulties in life are now in the thinking, the clinging, the ignorance, the aversion. This morning we had breakfast with a friend and she told us about another friend whose daughter had just taken her life. And of course, very traumatic experience for a mother. But the real problem is still at this moment, the thinking, the dwelling, the clinging, the ignorance. So the more understanding there is at this moment, it's the only way to solve any problems.
Thank you.
Hi has just answered a question from the dangerous group about last week we talked about how whatever arises is dangerous and whatever arises can be the object of attachment. So even the thinking about the development of the path, any conditioned reality is dangerous. And in one of the discussions, actually even on Monday, someone asked Ajahn about what about the Lokuttara Citas, because I mentioned to Haji was discussing it, and I said to him last week that the Lokuttara Citas are never the object of clinging, so they are not dangerous in the sense that they're not the object of clinging for anyone. But in the text, it mentions all Sankhara Dhammas are dangerous. Usually Ajahn won't answer this question. And I think the reason is because we just start to speculate about something, a topic that's very deep and cannot be known. I don't know if Nina or Jonathan have anything further to add. Because we talked about the degrees of understanding danger, it's easy to understand how dangerous the clinging, the wrong understanding, the ignorance is now. But in the deepest sense, whatever arises and falls away is unsatisfactory because it's impermanent and it is actually foul and dangerous.
Yes.
So the Buddha mentioned that all the khandhas are dangerous, and he gave many similes to indicate how dangerous they are. Sorry.
I have something on sense door and mind door, because it was said that we should not think too much about which doorway, but the first vipassana jnana is knowing the difference between sense door and mind door. So it seems that it is important to know the difference.
But this means, Nina, that there has to be the understanding of those realities that experience or are experienced in the sense door and those that experience or are experienced in the mind door. But still, it is the nimitta of the realities that appear through the mind door when it is the vipassana jnana. But there is the understanding, for example, the seeing is quite different from the thinking. The seeing is different from the rupa, the visible object that is seen. So no confusion about in the body and the ideas that people have, because it's clear that what seeing is, it's clear what visible object is, it's clear what the distinction is, and it's clear that the seeing is different from the thinking about the seeing or about the rupa that is experienced. So this is the understanding, the very clear and firm understanding of the distinction between namas and rupas, and between sense door realities and mind door realities. But still, no matter what the reality is, it is the nimitta of that reality, and it is experienced through the mind door at those moments of vipassana jnana. And then afterwards, the understanding is applied, or there is the direct understanding of many other realities at that degree of understanding, the parinyas.
Parinya, yeah. We talked about parinya also.
Yes. So the understanding of sense door and mind door doesn't mean it is the understanding through each. It means it's the understanding of the nimitta of different sense door and mind door realities, understanding that seeing is just for a moment, like we've discussed so many times. It seems there is seeing all the time, or visible object that appears all the time. But when it's the clear understanding, no confusion, it's clear that seeing falls away so quickly, and it's the mind or cittas that think about it, think about the shape, the form, the appearance, and so on.
Sarah, please excuse me. From last week, it was good to be reminded of the all-pervasiveness of the dangers. For example, the bhavangas while sleep, life continuum, can be considered pandaram, but there are still the asavas and the kilesas, latent tendencies just not arisen. The other thing was, even with tremendous bhavana, the development, that unless to the point of arahat, there are still the dangers, the clinging, unless at the level of arahat. So is it possible, for example, that a sotapanna is determined at that level of bhavana, that they will live for 7 more lifetimes? But this is all on conditions still.
Yes, whatever arises by conditions. And the arahat, who has eradicated all ignorance and attachment, has eradicated and understood the danger, the real danger of even the slightest clinging, like the slightest clinging to just existing or being, or to jhana experience, or to moments of enlightenment. So even the subtlest of clinging is understood as so very dangerous, and without understanding that whatever arises and falls away, even that slightest attachment cannot be eradicated. So there has to be that understanding of the danger, the harm of the arising and falling away of any reality in samsara. And for the sotapanna, there has been the direct and clear understanding of the arising and falling away of realities and the danger of realities, the vipassana jnana, which understands the danger of what arises and falls away, but still, so, and no more idea of my experience or my life, but still the attachment and ignorance is conditioned to continue arising, but less and less until it's finally eradicated at the stage of arahat. And for those who have understood the danger, even the Bhavanga cheetahs, which are just the result cheetahs arising and falling away, and in this realm, result of kusala karma. But even they are dangerous because they are unsatisfactory. They arise, they're unsatisfactory, they fall away, life continues on. So gradually there is the turning away from seeing life as satisfactory and permanent and in someone's control, with more understanding of the unsatisfactoriness, impermanence, the danger. For us, we can't really begin to understand how even moments of metta, for example, are dangerous because they're kusala. But actually, even those moments of metta can be the object of clinging. Whatever arises in samsara is dangerous in the deepest sense.
Yes, and how we live in a world of concepts. The thinking is reality, concepts are not, and whether it's thinking with understanding or with ignorance, and so much thinking with ignorance. So yes, thank you for rounding that out, Sarah. Thank you kindly.
And clinging to the moments of kusala that arise. So when there are moments of wise considering, instantly there's clinging or taking it for my wise considering or someone's wise considering or Ajahn's metta, for example. So the clinging comes in so quickly.
Yes, and the panya falls away so quickly.
But it can be the object of clinging again and again. So this is the danger of life in samsara. Even the rupas of the Buddha are objects of clinging for others. Okay, I think we can finish up now. So the Saturday, as I mentioned in the notes, Saturday discussions continue as usual each week, no change to the schedule, but there are some other changes. So we'll see you all next week as usual.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.